Hi, welcome back to Talk with TQ. I'm always so happy when you come. And you know, I'm really blessed with this job. This is a great job. You know, I could do it every day. One day I will be doing it every day. But I have a great guest that I want to present to you. And he's an educator, he's a musician, he's a quintessential, I'd say, kind of like the artist's educator, the educator's artist. And I met him in a very interesting way, but I have him on the show because he's got credentials. This gentleman, his name is Joseph Lento. He was actually proclaimed let me say it right. He was proclaimed an educator of arts and humanities by President Barack Obama in 2014. And I met him through the internet. I met him on LinkedIn.com, which I always say is the place that artists belong. That's where we belong, because that's where we meet each other. Those of us that actually treat our business as a sole proprietorship, I'll say it that way. But I'm really happy to have Mr. Lento on my show today because, like I said, he's got credentials, and I want to present him to you because he's got a lot to share. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Toni. Thank you for that really very generous introduction.
It's all true.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So tell me, you must be so proud of yourself to be proclaimed an educator of arts and humanities.
Well, yes, I mean, I'm very proud of it, but there are so many other countless teachers that deserved it and could have gotten it. I just happened to be fortunate enough to be one of the ones chosen, so there were many other deserving people.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you deserved it a lot. Now, I understand that you work with children, young children in high school.
Yes. I spent the majority of my career in secondary education, although I've taught every grade from pre-K through 12.
Oh, wow.
Presently, I've been the music director at Roosevelt High School in Yonkers. And of course, I love all my students.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
I'm sure they love you.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, I bet they do.
So I teach them instrumental music, grades 9 through 12. Usually I work mostly with the 11th and 12th graders.
Okay.
We don't always have enough resources to get the 9th and 10th graders in the program,
Right.
but I try and get them in on their lunch periods and any other time I can see them. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's almost like doing a little volunteer work at the same time.
Well, you know, you have to be open all day for the kids. And if there are kids who want to play, but it's not in their program, and they won't maybe see me until they're in the 11th grade, I'll take them out of their lunch period, or, you know, we'll work with another teacher and we'll get them in there. So, you know, if you have to work through your lunch period or your preparation period or get there early or stay late, it doesn't matter, as long as you can help the kids and try to share the gift of music.
Now, you know, the arts are so important, you know, to education, and it seems like the arts programs often are the first to get the budget cuts. So I hear that you're dealing with that by actually kind of volunteering some time and catching them in their off time to give them a little bit of art.
Yeah, what happens is, you know, in my school, I'm the only music teacher, and we have a large population. So it's due to budgetary constraints. Most high schools would have 2 to 3 music teachers, so you can service the kids, you know, all the ones that want to be there, of course. So when you're the only person there, you have to try and make yourself as available as possible. I also work with vocalists. We don't have a chorus per se, because I do instrumental music, but I've taught chorus in my career, so I'm always working with soloists or small groups of students, trying to give as much as possible, because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right, yeah. So I think a teacher is often someone, I compare teaching, this is my personal thing, to clergy, even though I'm not clergy, but it's like a calling. You know, it's a calling, and you just feel compelled to do this. I'm wondering if you feel the same way about it, because you're so involved.
Well, you know, most teachers are really involved. Teachers work so hard, and they're so dedicated, and people don't realize what they do. And we do it because we love it. For me, there wasn't really any choice. From the time I was a little boy, I wanted to play the trumpet. I saw Louis Armstrong on TV.
Oh, wow.
I was about 5 years old, and we were very poor, so there was no way I was getting that trumpet, other than if I got it in school.
Right, yeah.
And of course, I was rejected in the second grade for the band class.
Why is that?
I don't know. A teacher came around the room, and he said, Joseph, go like this with your fingers. And I went like that with my fingers. And I said, wow, he wants me to play the trumpet. He didn't select me.
Oh, that was his loss.
So I had to wait till the 6th grade before I was able to get a trumpet.
Okay.
And so till this day, I never turn any student away.
Right.
I don't give any tests. All I want to know is, do they want to be there? I don't care about talent. I just care about desire.
Right.
So from that experience, I would never turn a student away. And although I had become proficient on the trumpet at an early age, I mean, even though I didn't start early, I took to it really quickly.
Yeah.
And by the time I was 16, I was starting to play professionally.
Okay.
And you know, I went on to study with people in the New York Philharmonic. I was in the New York City All-City High School Orchestra, which at the time was the premier orchestra, youth orchestra in the country. And a dear friend of mine, Maestro Jonathan Strasser, who just passed away last year, was very instrumental in that group. So while I had opportunities to go in an orchestral direction, you know, playing like that, I said, no, I want to be a teacher. And that's all I wanted to do, is be a teacher, because I saw what the opportunity I had to play music saved my life.
Right.
And that's all I wanted to do.
Right.
So,
but you're a performing artist as well.
Fortunately, I've had the best of both worlds.
Okay.
I started playing professionally at the age of 16 with a little combo, and we went on and on and on, and eventually, you know, became pretty well known in that circle.
Okay.
And I played for years and years. For 30 years, I had a band. And
wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, and we performed for governors and senators and secretaries of states and mostly families, weddings and dances and bar mitzvahs and things like that. So it was wonderful.
So you were just like sort of thrust into the business, it sounds like, of being an artist.
Yeah, it happened to find me.
It found you, okay.
Sort of. And I just went with it. And I've been really very, very fortunate.
Yeah, and I think it's wonderful that you feel this, you know, this drive to help others, to help children. Do you ever see children that you see are like a diamond in the rough, and you just know that they could be Louis Armstrong someday?
You know how many students I look at them and I say, do you know, I wish I had your talent. I wish I had just an iota of your genius. I said, I'd have really been something today.
Yeah.
And they look at me like, what are you talking about? I say, you don't realize what you have. So your job is to try and make them aware of what you really see in them.
Right.
And when you see that talent, and you learn to recognize that I'm not just saying it to say it to them.
Right.
You try and draw it out of them. But I always tell them, I say, so many students are infinitely more talented than I could ever have been, and sometimes they don't use it the right way.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the part about it where I don't think I succeed enough.
And you take the responsibility onto yourself.
You can't help it.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you say that. I often wonder, because I've been in situations like this, when you see that there's a student that is so remarkably talented that you can't imagine that they'll do something else, and then you write their recommendation to college and all of that, they get in, they get out, and they're selling insurance before you know it, you know? I mean, do you ever find a way to make sure I guess it's impossible to ensure it, but to see that you steer them towards what their real natural abilities are, as opposed to what someone else thinks they should do.
You make a great point, Toni. And that's, you know, my job is not to direct them to become musicians, even the ones with the most enormous talent.
Yeah.
My job is to do exactly what you said, to try and direct them to the things that they'll be successful at.
Yeah.
And you know by having conversations with them. Most of the young people I work with are very people-oriented.
Okay.
And I always try to, when in the conversations I have with them, I said, you ever think about teaching or, social work
Right.
or things, working with people, because you're brilliant. You reach people automatically.
Yeah.
And some of them say, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
But I just want them to use music as a foundation for supporting who they are and bringing out the best in them.
That's interesting.
And sometimes they become musicians.
Yes.
And sometimes they become teachers,
Okay. Yes. Yes.
which a lot of them actually don't see themselves doing because they say, it's really hard. And they recognize that. And I say, that's really nice of you to say, but it's really not hard. Teaching is a gift. It's a joy to teach.
Right.
Oh no, but we're hard on you. The kids are hard on the teachers. I said, thank you for recognizing that, but it's part of the process. So I don't think of it as kids being hard on us. It's part of the process. You expect that there's a natural development
Yeah.
in behavior and attitude and nurturing. So I never really take it on personally.
Right. Yeah. Do you ever see that when you engage a student in the arts, what kind of changes do you see in them? Because I get back to the fact that we don't have much of a budget often for the arts unless you're in some very, very wealthy community. They generally cut the budget for the arts. And I just see that, and I'm wondering if you've observed this, that sometimes it seems that our youth they are not quite as well-rounded as they could have been had they had that once a week art class. I remember teaching at a local private school, and they didn't have a lot. It was very strict, but it seemed like when the art teacher walked in the door, the art teacher was like a celebrity. But there are changes that I imagine you could observe in a student once they actually master something musically, artistically, and then all of a sudden they start from zero, and then you bring them to the point where they're like sitting there playing the song.
You being an educator and artist yourself, you led me into that very well, and thank you for doing that, because it takes a very complicated subject and makes it easy for me to relate my experiences.
Yeah.
So thank you. I realized this 34 years ago. I first started out teaching special education, global history. I had a minor in history.
Yeah.
Music jobs were difficult to come by, but the principal wanted me at the school. So I had the requisite special education credits. I had enough to get a license as a history teacher. I already had my orchestral music license. And I'm teaching kids with special needs.
Yeah.
Kids who have both physical and emotional challenges. And I said to myself, no one is teaching the music in the school. So in addition to the social studies, I gathered up some instruments and we started a band.
Wow.
And when you talk about seeing change in human beings and what music can do and the expectations that people have of them that wouldn't even think about giving this young person an instrument.
Yeah.
So I know, and you know, the power of art and music.
Yes.
And when I tell you those children were transformed, not because of me, I was just simply the conduit to the music. It's just, till this day, I still see those youngsters in that class in room 371 at Lehman High School, and what they were doing, and how it changed their attitude, their relationships with each other. It's amazing.
The relationships with each other.
The cursing stopped to almost nothing. The hitting each other and teasing stopped almost to nothing. And they were like, well, let's get into Lento's room. Let's go practice before. They were practicing when they were taking my class for history.
Wow.
They were in the back practicing before the history lesson. And that wasn't even the music class at the time. We would have to do it before school and after school and during lunch. Then I finally got periods put in where I was actually teaching them music.
Yeah.
So.
And so you've done some studies on, or some research, I guess, on the brain. that can kind of support what you're saying. There are some changes that happen once one engages in the arts. There are some changes that happen, I've found, if I put a paintbrush in a certain student's hand, or even a certain adult,
Right.
let alone a child, even an adult. So have you seen these kind of things?
Absolutely. I was taking a master's degree in school district administration and supervision. And one of the courses was a research class. And I said, I need to make this meaningful.
Yeah.
So I was the band director at Lehman High School at the time, which was actually my alma mater. I was a student there. So it was a big kick to go back and teach
nice.
there at 2 different occasions in my career. So I said, let me do a side-by-side comparison. It's nothing new, by the way. It's been done for decades. I was just doing something that other people have done. And I always say this, I don't do anything new. Whatever I do, I've learned somewhere.
Yeah.
I may not remember who taught it to me or where I heard it, but nothing I do is new. Someone taught it to me. And that's something I think is very important. When I hear people speak about things, you didn't invent any of it. You learned it from someone. And I try to always deal, even when I'm writing an article or doing an interview like this, whatever I'm doing, someone taught me.
Right.
Even if I don't remember who it was.
Yeah.
There's nothing original coming out of me. So what I did was I took a couple hundred students who had never played an instrument, and students who had at least 2 years training in my program.
Right.
In every academic and social construct there was. Community service, academics, in the school, out of the school. And the students who had a minimum of 2 years training in instrumental music were scoring between 15 to almost 19 points higher in every academic subject. The biggest differences were in foreign language, math and science. Community service. The kids who were in my program were involved in all types of community service, as opposed to the students who weren't in my program, no community service. Then kids had come in the program, and all of a sudden, their grades are going up. Their community service, because they just pulled into this music and art is about life. And it's about community and sharing. And we may not always get everything right, but at least we try. We're community-minded people. Because music and art is community. We do what we do to share with other people.
It is to be shared.
To be shared. And so I had that work was published locally and cited, and actually it was used at Bronx High School of Science for more than 10 years. A dear friend of mine, Mitch Rubinsky, who's retired now, was the band director there for many years, and he would use it as part of his curriculum in the music appreciation classes. And those young people appreciated it, and I was very flattered that they did that.
That's it's another feather in your cap.
Oh, no, somebody else's feather. I just happen to, wear it that day.
You're just so humble.
No, it's not about being humble. It's just about telling the truth. Anything I have, somebody else provided a way for me to get there. And when the teacher rejected me in the 2nd grade, well, the teacher in the 6th grade didn't. And so, you are a product of who you've been around. And I've been around the greatest teachers in the world.
It's amazing how your teachers, I think at many different ages, influence us. There's a teacher I had in the 2nd grade, favorite teacher of all teachers I've had, and I've had a lot of them, but you can touch someone so much that it influences the rest of their life.
Yes, you're right. Till this day, one of my professors from college, Dr. Alan Brings, I have an annual luncheon with him and his delightful wife, Genevieve. She is a brilliant master musician and a doctor of music herself. And every year, we meet for our annual lunch, and we talk all year, and he's been such a big influence in my life. I have another teacher, Sten Gould was a science teacher of mine in the 7th grade. We're still in touch. Signor Pettinella, an Italian teacher. You know, teachers who influence your life. And then, of course, all the other teachers I've had that helped me along the way. I'm grateful to all of them. Forgive me if I don't mention all of you. There are too many.
Yeah. Well, they'll know you're thinking about them. So when you think about your students and teaching them music, what do you think, and students in general, what do you think we really need, you know, I'd say in our communities, in our municipal governments, you know, with regard to, you know, making sure that there are arts and humanities in the schools? I mean, they're taking it away a lot. Some people don't understand the importance of it at all. And then, you know, there are a lot of people that think it's just fodder.
Well, you know, at the risk of getting in trouble, I'm going to speak my mind, because I usually do get in trouble for speaking my mind. But if it's for kids, and it's always for kids, and you know,
for the sake of learning,
I'll take a shot for kids every day of the week. Our politicians are well-meaning, and they talk. You know, I believe they're sincere, but they're not experts. They talk about art and music, but they're not experts. And many of our very hardworking, well-intentioned school administrators, you know, they have, you know, wonderful intentions, but they're not experts. We need real experts in the arts to implement the arts. And we need to show the real relationship between academic and social success and the arts. And for some reason, in our minority and special needs communities, that message doesn't take hold. And that's where we need it most of all. And I've spent my life teaching in these communities, intentionally teaching in these communities, because we were very poor growing up. We had nothing. And a lot of these children don't have anything, even if it's someone to speak to them in a fatherly way, you know, or some, they might not have that. These children, more than anyone, our special needs communities, our minority communities, our English language learners, they need music. Instrumental music, more than anyone. It really is, it binds them all together. It lifts and elevates their self-esteem. Because now all you have is an instrument. That's the equalizer. Language doesn't matter. Level of math or science or reading skill doesn't matter. So all of that will be elevated. But when you put an instrument in someone's hand, it's the equalizer. And it's humbling for everyone.
You know, it's interesting because I've heard, and I know firsthand, that music would actually help you with your math skills. You know?
Didn't help me.
Didn't help you?
I was okay.
But I mean, you probably would have been worse had you not. I think a lot of it, if you learn music theory, you learn the relationship between notes. There's a relationship, and it's mathematical.
You know, you're absolutely right. There are two organizations that I've been working with lately that I think are important, and I'd like to mention them because I think folks can reach out to them. One is differentbrains.org and Dr. Harold Reitman. They're located in Florida. Dr. Reitman is a retired surgeon, and he goes around the country speaking about neurodiversity. And it's really the fancy word for we all learn differently. And he and his organization are really, there's such a force now in this movement that, you know, reach out to differentbrains.org and Dr. Harold Reitman. Dr. Harold Reitman, differentbrains.org. They have such wonderful resources for people. It's amazing. And Dr. Rich Allen of Disrupt Ed magazine is doing marvelous things with outlets for educators to bring about change in the paradigm, teaching and learning. And I encourage people to reach out to those organizations, parents, teachers, and see the resources they have. They're wonderful.
And also to get an understanding of the relationship between the arts and everything else. You know, it's almost people, there are many people that still see it as like playtime. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that as artists, you're constantly working. You're constantly working at your art. It's something that doesn't stop, you know. And if you have a particular inclination towards it, it's almost like your brain is constantly thinking that way. And I look at students who are very artistic. I taught gifted and talented students. Very often they could be highly talented artists, very talented artists, but you might notice that the gifted and talented ones are often extremely astute in subjects like mathematics, physics, science, history, writing, you know, literature, whatever. You know, I think we need more teachers like you that are in the system to actually bring all of us together.
Well, that's kind of you to say. People like yourself are doing an incredible job bringing these things to the community and giving someone like me an opportunity to speak about it. You know, I look around your studio and I say, if my life depended on it, I could not do anything like this. And I know to all of my colleagues who are secure in what they do, I'm going to say I'm a very strong advocate that the artists, the art teachers, the music teachers, they often call us the enrichment teachers or the extras. We're not extra, we're not enrichment. We have been given blessings and gifts to do what we do that, with all humility, other folks can't do.
Right.
You know, when colleagues are, you know, talking to me about, you know, they're depressed because they don't feel they're respected, I say, when you walk into this building, there's nobody that can do the job you do. If I'm talking to an art teacher,
Right.
give them all the training in the world. They can't go and do what you do. My job, you can't just go and do what I do. You have to be born with a certain ability. However, we as artists can teach mathematics and science and
It's true.
history and chemistry, and I'm not putting them down. We should be, when we are finally given the respect we deserve, our kids will benefit from it. And that's an article I just did with Disrupt Ed magazine and Rich Allen. It talks about us asserting ourselves, and when we assert ourselves, our children will be better for it because it's really what we need to do so they can see in us what their potential is.
That's really good. You know, we're going to talk again. You're going to be on my show again.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's interesting you say that, and I always say that an artist does something that most people are not gifted with. You know, so it should be respected and it should be compensated appropriately. You
Absolutely.
know, and I think that if we can get the powers that be to understand that, I think that they'd be more inclined to engage their funds and their revenues into the arts, and they'd see just how society can change. Because they always run to us when something goes wrong.
Or when they need something to look really good.
Yes, we'll make it look good. We always do.
Yes.
Yes, because we have a talent for it. But thank you so much.
Thank you, thank your audience, thank your wonderful crew. I'm very humbled to be here and have this time with you.
Yes, and I want to elaborate next time on some of the other things we were talking about because I think it's a very important topic. So I'm going to thank you again, Joseph Lento. And where can we find you?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.com. That's where artists need to live. That's where I live, okay? But thanks again for coming to the show. I really appreciate it when everybody comes here. I thank my director, James Brooks, and my sound technician, Joseph Pisano. I really appreciate them very much. It wouldn't happen without them. And I thank the audience. Thank you guys for coming to the show. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again for the next edition of Talk with TQ. Bye.